In late August 2005, a tropical storm formed over the Bahamas, crossed South Florida, then gathered power over the Gulf. By August 28th, Katrina had become a giant, with winds roaring and the Gulf pushing a wall of water toward shore. Break time equals 900 ms/New Orleans, Biloxi, Gulfport, the Bayous and Barrier Islands. Entire lives stood in her path. Break time equals 1s/Monday, August 29th. Before sunrise, the first landfall near the Louisiana coast. Power line snapped. Water climbed stairs that had never known the sea. Break time equals 700 ms/. The sound was not just wind, it was roofs unfastening, walls breathing, sirens mixing with prayers. Break time equals 900 ms/. Along the Mississippi coast, the surge came like a freight train, lifting boats into streets, folding homes as if they were paper. Break time equals 1.1 s/. And then came the breaking. Levees and flood walls around New Orleans, barriers thought to stand, failed in dozens of places. Canals spilled into neighborhoods. The lower Ninth Ward, Gentilly, Lakeview, water rose fast, then kept rising until 80% of the city was underwater. Break time equals 1.1 s/. Attics became last refuges. People punched through ceilings to breathe. A marker on a doorframe, time stamped by a tide. Break time equals 1.2 s/. By noon, the Superdome, a shelter of last resort, held tens of thousands, hot, dark, and loud with worry. At the convention center, families waited in lines that felt like forever. Break time equals 800 ms/. Across the region, phones died, batteries drained, and rumors traveled faster than help. For many, the first night was the longest. For some, it was the last. Break time equals 1.2 s/. On the Mississippi coast, past Christian, Bay St. Louis, Biloxi, Katrina pushed a surge more than 20 feet in places. Entire blocks vanished. Churches that had weathered a century stood roofless. Pine trees bent like compass needles in wind. Break time equals 1 s/. And yet, resilience began as quickly as devastation. Neighbors formed human chains in chest-deep water. Strangers lifted strangers into boats. Break time equals 800 ms/. The U.S. Coast Guard rescued more than 33,000 people. Helicopters hovered. Baskets swung, a hand reaching down, a hand reaching up. Break time equals 1.2 s/. Katrina's toll was staggering. At least 1,800 lives, more than 1 million people displaced. Break time equals 700 ms/. Houston opened its Astrodome. Buses rolled toward Baton Rouge, Dallas, Atlanta, and beyond. A new word entered daily speech: diaspora. Break time equals 1 s/. Why did New Orleans flood so deeply? Break time equals 400 ms/. Much of the city sits at or below sea level, bordered by river, lake, and vanishing wetlands. Protection depended on levees, flood walls, and pumps. In Katrina, the system failed. Water overtopped levees, canal walls breached, pumps lost power. Break time equals 1.1 s/. A storm's category tells you about wind. The water, surge, and rainfall often tells the story of loss. Break time equals 1.2 s/. There were mistakes. Evacuations too late for those without cars or cash. Supplies that didn't move fast enough. Coordination that broke when communications did. We remember these not to assign blame, but to insist on better. Break time equals 1 s/. Because people were on rooftops with signs that said, "Help," while the sun rose and set and rose again. Break time equals 1.2 s/. We also remember the kindness. Church kitchens cooking until the gas ran out. Nurses by bedsides in sweltering rooms. Teachers rebuilding classrooms in new cities. Break time equals 900 ms/. The brass bands that played when neighborhoods reopened, because the soul of a city breathes in music. Break time equals 1.1 s/. In the months after, mud dried to dust and became memory. Streets reopened. Schools restarted. Mardi Gras returned, smaller, then stronger. Break time equals 900 ms/. The levee system around New Orleans was strengthened, a $14.5 billion upgrade. New flood maps were drawn, codes tightened, plans rewritten. Break time equals 1.2s/, but policy is only part of the story. The rest lives in photo frames, in porch conversations, in the way people now watch the sky. Break time equals 900 ms/, even today, when a storm is named, a certain quiet falls. People top off fuel. They check batteries. They call each other. They leave sooner. Break time equals 1.1s/. Katrina taught lessons written in water. Break time equals 500 ms/. Storm surge is the first danger. Evacuation is wisdom. Levees and flood walls can fail. Plan for the failure. The most vulnerable need the first seat and the last check-in. Communities save each other while help is on the way. Break time equals 1.3s/. For those we lost, we speak their names in the way we live better prepared. Kinder when the lights go out. We remember them in high water marks on brick, in empty lots that bloom, in the music and stories told again and again. Break time equals 1.3s/. If you are listening from far away, Katrina is not just a New Orleans story or a Mississippi story. It is an American story about how we face what we cannot stop, and how we hold each other up when the water rises. Break time equals 1.2s/. For official guidance, follow the